I'm gonna go ahead and say it and call it what it is. The reason we're in a crisis is because people don't actually want to pay this debt. That's why we're in a crisis. It's because people are not really paying it. They're doing minimums. They're pushing deferments. They're doing all types of stuff. They don't actually want to pay it. No one wants to pay it. That's what the crisis is really about. Because I'm hearing people that graduated in 1990 talking about they got student loan debt. What are we doing? Welcome back, y'all. This is the Drunk Capitalist channel, and I'm here today with a story coming from Market Watch. So I'm sure a lot of you guys already know about the student loan debt crisis situation, and they're calling it a crisis, but in reality, it's a bunch of people got sold on the dream of if you go to college, you'll get a good paying job, and then, you know, that debt that you took out, you'll be able to pay it off, so on and so forth. Now, there are plenty of cases where people have taken out a lot of student loan debt and they got a lower paying job, but they eventually make more money as they, you know, advance in their career. They gain more skills, or they open a business. A lot of reasons for you to increase your salary, increase your income. But then there's cases where you pay the average amount for your college tuition, you have an average amount of debt, and you have an above average paying job immediately out of college. That happens for some people it doesn't happen for. But today we're gonna look at a story of a man that has a different story. So this is Market Watch. He says, I'm in dire need of help. I have $140K in student loans and recently had to quit my job, making $125,000 because I have anxiety. What should I do? Now, this is a very tantalizing headline for me because immediately I have plenty of questions, and I want to know more about this guy and what's going on as far as his $140K in student loans. I mean, that sounds pretty on par with a lot of male debt holders. They do tend to go for higher degrees or some advanced degrees, and in general go to more private schools. So 140K is not that shocking to me because I've seen worse. I've seen more than 140K. But if you're gonna take out 140K, I'm just letting you know you have to get some type of degree that will pay you, you know, at least that per year. So at a 125K per year job, that sounds just about right. That sounds like okay, all right. You know, you owe 140K, you make 125K a year. You definitely can knock that 140K out in relatively no time. You know, because we're talking about $250,000 in 2 years and 140K debt. You could definitely knock that out in 2 years. You can knock it out. But that's just the way I operate. So I understand a lot of people don't operate like that. So he says, what should he do? So we get into the article and we learn a little bit more about this gentleman. And he says, I need serious help. 39-year-old man with over 140K in student loan debt. That's a red flag to me. He's 39 years old. See, I can make an accommodation and say maybe he went to school later in life and graduated maybe 30 or, you know, something like that. But on average, people graduate around 22, 23 years old. So at this point, I have to look at him as though he's been paying his student loan debt for almost 20 years. So that $140,000 in student loans is probably everything, including the interest over the past 2 decades. Okay. I recently had to quit my job making $125,000 a year due to severe anxiety and depression. It was so extremely overwhelming that my doctor put me on all types of meds to cope. However, I ended up quitting because of severe panic attacks. So this gentleman, he's dealing with some mental health issues, and that's pretty much why he quit his job. He has severe anxiety and depression, and apparently it's so overwhelming that he had to, you know, leave his job, which is understandable. And I'm not going to say anything against that. If you need to change your life and get a new job, or, you know, make some rearrangements in your life, you should do that for your mental health. That is of the utmost importance. But again, my issue is, like I mentioned before, we're talking about a man that has probably been in the workforce for almost 2 decades with $140,000 in student loans, making $125,000 a year. Now, I understand he probably didn't start out making $125,000 a year, but at a certain point, he was making $125,000 a year, and he really could have knocked out that debt, you know, in some type of 2-year span, if he had that job for 2 years or more. He said, however, I ended up quitting because of severe panic attacks. Now I'm making nearly 50% less of what I was making before, and I'm currently in a Chapter 13 bankruptcy. I'm in really bad shape. Please tell me how I can get assistance with my student loans. I'm in dire need of help. So again, it's not that he quit working altogether. He quit his high-paying job for a pretty good paying, average paying job at about, you know, you're talking about half. He said nearly half, so I'm assuming that it's not quite half. It's probably less, it's more than half, but it's probably like $70,000 or $80,000 that he makes now. So that's where I want to get into the conversation of lifestyle bloat and budgeting, because it seems to me that it's very possible that this, first of all, he's single. Let's put that out there. He probably doesn't have any children. He's single, so he's not married. So, you know, he's not making those, you know, regular American dream stages of, you know, married, have children, get a job, you know, buy a car, buy a house, do all the things, mortgage, blah, blah, blah. But it's possible that this person did not quite budget out their life. He didn't get himself a financial planner. I feel like for anyone that's making over $100,000 a year, you should get a financial planner, because there's no reason to make $125,000 a year and have $140,000 in student loan debt for almost 2 decades. That doesn't make any sense unless you're paying the absolute minimum and you're waiting for it to be discharged and you're not accurately planning out your life. You know what I mean? And this is why I want to talk about budgeting, because a lot of people go through this where they don't live within their means or below their means in order to get rid of debt so they can start building wealth. Like, you have to get that debt out of your life, because anything can happen, right? Anything in life could happen. And just like this guy is seeing, is that, you know, his mental illness and his the severity of it took him over, and that is what changed his life. It changed his income, because he wasn't preparing for that, he wasn't getting rid of that debt in the first place. Now he's in a bankruptcy situation. Had he gotten rid of that debt within that first 2 decades and went down to a job that pays half, he would have been just fine. He wouldn't need to file bankruptcy. He would have been fine, because he would have been living within his means with no debt. And that's why I want to talk about budgeting and trying to avoid lifestyle bloat. Like, just because you make more money doesn't mean you have to spend more money. If you make more money, you should be putting more money towards any debt you may have. You have to do it. It is the best outcome. I get it. Some people say, hey, you know, that debt is worth having so that you could have the cash or to invest and do all these other things. And it's like, sure. But if your income is primarily coming from an employer who can let you go at any time, you ought to pay off that debt as soon as possible. You know, it's really not a joke. You know what I mean? Like, you really do have to attack your debt as soon as possible. So you gotta look at your after-tax income, and there's like a basic rule everyone knows, you know, like the 50-20-30 rule. It's very simple, and it just helps you reach your financial goals. Basically, you spend 50% of your income on your needs, 30% on your wants, and 20% on your savings. Very super simple. And basically, his student loan should have been in that 50% of his needs. It means getting a roommate. It means, instead of buying that first home, even though you probably should, getting the roommate first, pay off as much debt you can, save up as much money as you can with that 20% in savings, and then go after the mortgage. And maybe you'll still have some student loan debt, but at least most of your debt is taken care of, and that most of that debt is not in the mortgage. I mean, it's not outside of that mortgage. For me though, I mean, the 50-20-30 rule is like, it's cool. The 30% on wants though is a little bit extreme for me. I'm not in the 30% wants category right now because, well, like I said, even I'm attacking my debt. I also have student loan debt, so I'm not just talking just to chat. I'm saying what it is. Even 30% is too high for me. But let's talk about his budget for real, because I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm gonna say he spent $100,000 on his student loans. So let's put that in. And then over the course of 20 years, it only added $40,000 in interest. So let's say 30 years of his loan terms. So you could make out with about $600 in payments. Now, we don't know if his student loan payments are federal or they are private. But I have like a very, very high interest rate right here, which is usually as high as it really gets for student loans. Now we're saying he spend $600 a month. Straight out of college, that is a lot of money. Totally understand. But, at a certain point in your life, as you are in the workforce, that becomes a part of your expenses. It has to always be factored in. Now let's just pretend for a second that he is in a very expensive city, New York City, and he's making that salary. I'm giving him all the benefits of the doubt here, you know what I'm saying? I'm giving him all the benefits of the doubt. So he's in New York City. He's making $125,000 a year. He's getting taxed as a normal single citizen. Monthly, after taxes, he's taking home $6,700. Now, like I said, that student loan payment should be around $700 a month. And if it's around $700,000 a month, if it's around $700 a month, he should have another $6,000 to, handle his 50-30-20 budget, right? But my problem is, what's going on with that $6,000? And why isn't half of that $6,000 hitting that debt? That's what we need to do, folks. When we have an excess amount of money, because, it is kind of an excess, even for New York City, taking home, his gross paycheck is over $10,000 a month. You're taking home $6,000 after, that student loan payment. Your rent, you shouldn't need to pay more than $2,000 a month. I'm giving him $2,000. I'm just gonna say he doesn't want to live with roommates. He is 39. He doesn't need to spend more than $2,000 a month. He's a single man. He only needs a one bedroom. One bedrooms go for about $2,000 a month. You can get a really bad one in New York City for less if you want. You just get a couple roaches for roommates, and you could pay about $1,500. That frees up thousands of dollars. We really have to get into the business of attacking our debt so we can start building wealth. Obviously, I don't know if this man is black or white. It doesn't matter. This is what you have to do. You have to do it. I'm going to stress it over and over again. You have to attack your debt. I get it. You see some money in your bank account. You're like, ooh, let me treat myself. No. Treat yourself occasionally. In fact, have a schedule for treating yourself. You can't just treat yourself whenever you want to. You really have to treat that debt like it's a ball and chain, because it is. It's gonna follow you. If you don't get rid of it, it's going to follow you. It's going to follow you when you have your kid. It's going to follow you when you get married. It's going to follow you after you die. You have to get rid of it. Give it to somebody else. Like don't sit here for almost 2 decades with so much debt. And I get it. It's possible that, he had like a term, with the federal, they have like a 10-year term. But then they also have, in the federal, they also have income-based repayment plans where it's based on your income. And they take out, like, I forgot what the percentage, but I believe it's like 3% or somewhere between 3 and 10% of your income. They'll, like, take it out. And that's one way to go about it in order to make timely payments, keep your credit score up and all that. But it's just really important to even think about if his term was 10 years, his monthly payment would have been $1,100. Now, granted, early in his career, if he was making maybe $50 or $60,000, that would have been, a tougher payment. But again, it's early. You don't have a mortgage yet. You probably have a nice beat up Nissan that you don't have to pay for. You just got to pay the insurance and gas. But we really got to start thinking long term when it comes to our debt, people. Like, you don't want to be 40 filing for bankruptcy because you can't pay your bills because you have student loan debt still and you haven't been a student for almost half your life. The other half of your life you was a student. One half of your life you was a student, the other half you wasn't a student, but now you're in bankruptcy because you got student loan debt still somehow. Like you were a student for as long as you haven't been a student and you were still in debt. Like, it's blowing my mind. But I love having this conversation with you guys. Thank you guys for watching. In a future video, I will break down my own student loan debt once I get my things in order. I'm gonna bring all that info to y'all and show you guys what I'm doing and provide you guys with some updates periodically about how it's going, how the plan is working, so on and so forth. But again, thank you guys for watching. This is The Broke Capitalist. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.